Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join His mission. This podcast is powered by Within Reach Global. Subscribe, watch, and listen on YouTube today. Visit missionspulse.com.
Here we are back again on Missions Pulse, and we are talking about connecting missionary stories to the Western world. And something I'm super passionate about because I've been on the field for 23 years, in China for 15 years, now Thailand for nearly 10. And this is what we have got to do, be able to experience these things, the things that God is doing around the world, but not only for our own sake. The whole goal here is to gather people from all over the world, from places where we're sent from, and encourage and inspire, letting people know that, yes, God is at work around the world, and you can be included in this work as well. And so joining me today, I'm really happy to have my friend on the show, Mr. Darin Dunn. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm glad we finally made this happen. We've known each other for some years here in Chiang Mai, Thailand. We're not far. What are we? A couple miles away from each other?
Yeah. Yeah, we are now. I think you moved a little bit closer.
Yeah. Now that I moved down south, down to the south side of Chiang Mai, it's a dangerous part around here. You know, I've never had so many power outages in World Club land as I have my whole Thailand experience now.
Yeah. Sorry, I lost you for a second. You cut out right as you said power outage. They went out for a second.
I was going to say, let's start this over and cut that out, but it's applicable. So let's just go with it, roll with it. But I want you, first of all, before you tell me your story and, catch us up about who you are, why are we talking about connecting missionary stories to the Western world? Why are you so passionate about this one thing?
Well, I guess where God first developed this passion in me was I was on staff at a large church in Texas in the U.S. and we had missionaries that would come in, and my role was to help produce the weekend services. And the missionaries would come in, and in those days we kind of were moving into like PowerPoint, but it was kind of new, and there wasn't a lot of people didn't know how to quite use it, and it was either kind of a teleprompter or it was just endless pictures, and they would just kind of show up and give us their PowerPoint, and it'd be like, and this is the pastor, and this is his son there on the left, and it'd be like a group of like 30 people, you can't even see their faces. And I was really excited about missions at that time because I had just done a mission trip with my church, and so I was really excited about missions. But I'd look down from the balcony, and I just would kind of see people just kind of losing interest in the presentation of it. And that's where God really kind of started to develop this desire in me to really help missionaries connect. And I was doing mission trips to Thailand during that time once a year. And on this side, I was talking to the missionaries, and I was hearing the same kind of frustration. They were saying, one guy told me he took a month off of ministry every time he would go back just to put together a PowerPoint presentation. And other people were saying, our churches are now asking for videos, and we have no idea how to put together a video. And, this is before smartphones. And so they were struggling with trying to figure out how to keep up with the multimedia landscape that was kind of blowing up at that time, and people were starting to want to see pictures and video and things like that. So that's where really God started to connect this desire I had from on this side of in the U.S. side to what was happening in the East, and I wanted to really help make those connections between the missionaries in the East and the church in the West.
Awesome. Well, in a moment, I want you to tell me about how you learn some of your skills. What are maybe some of the tools you even use? Are you or are you not on TikTok? What everybody wants to know right now. Mm-hmm. But before we do that, tell me a little bit more about your story. Maybe before that, how did you come to get this missions passion? And now you've been on the field for 30, 40 years now? 50?
Yeah, right. 16 years.
Like 16? Okay, you're talking like a guy who was like way pre-internet. So
things happened really fast in the technology field, as you know. I mean, it just around the time that I came in was when things started to really explode. Facebook had just come on the scene, so people were starting to use social media. and this was like 2007 when I moved over full time. So that I think Facebook had launched in like '06. So it was starting out. Of course, there weren't any groups or anything like that. You just used your personal profile pages, and people were starting to figure out how to use those. And iPhones weren't around yet, so people were still trying to figure out how to do video. So that was still kind of not really accessible, but people wanted to do video. There was a desire there to start. YouTube had launched, and so there was people were seeing that other people were producing videos, and so they wanted to do that. But it required you to have a decent computer you could edit on, a camera that you could get your footage into your computer, and so there were some hurdles to jump. So I had gone on staff with my church initially doing youth ministry. And I think we kind of came to a mutual kind of agreement that wasn't really maybe going to be my calling was in youth ministry. I loved being involved in the church, and I loved the ministry, but it didn't really feel like it was exactly what was clicking for me. And my church, they were great. They said, hey, we want to start this tech department. Would you be willing to move over and learn how to do audio visual stuff and video editing and things like that? And I didn't have any experience really in doing that. I'd made a few videos as a kid with my parents' camcorder, setting up the 2 VCRs and kind of doing some stuff, but it was really difficult, so we didn't do a lot of that. But the church, they gave me the job there doing that and got me the training that I needed. And really a lot of it was just on the job training. And the most valuable thing for me was that we were producing videos that would be shown in the weekend services. So they would be advertising upcoming retreats, or maybe a special message from a guest or something like that. And so we would produce these videos, and we tried to make them fun and engaging. And I would be able to get immediate feedback because I would produce these videos and play them for the services. And we had 3 services. So I'd play them for the first service, and I'd kind of be watching, and you sit and do something for hours editing, and then you put it before a crowd, and you immediately feel like, oh, that was too long there. Oh, that joke didn't work. And you can immediately get feedback that you didn't get from your own brain when you were spending hours and hours and hours looking at it over and over and over. So I would actually go in and tweak the videos in between services and try to improve them and get a better engagement. And I love doing that. And so I learned a lot just from getting that immediate feedback from the congregation, from the audience. And so I kind of was honing my craft for a few years doing that. And then that's kind of around the time that God finally kind of connected in my brain that he had been preparing me to go overseas and do this for missionaries. And so I had a lot of just trial and error learning about how to do these videos. And so I was able to kind of take those things, and I was very low budget at first. So I had to really do it kind of guerrilla style. I would use lamps as my lighting, whatever I could find. I'd go in a closet to record audio. I'd put pillows around my microphone to record audio, whatever I could do. And I would travel all over Asia and do videos for missionaries. And it would be like personalized videos for, hey, we're the Millers, and we're working in Singapore, and here's what we're doing. And it would kind of be a day in the life of that missionary. And then I produced the video for them in one day, give it to them, move to the next family, and I would just move around in a country for about a month. And then I would come back to Thailand and regroup, plan my next trip, and then go into another country for a month. And I did about 11 countries around Southeast Asia. And I was single, obviously, in those days. And so I had the freedom to do that, move around. And that was really a fun era in my career there.
That sounds super cool, man. When you're talking about this, it totally reminds me, because I've always been, how old are you, by the way?
I'm 43.
Okay. I'm 44, just turned 44. So we're basically Xennials, right? Like Gen Xers with a millennial touch. So we know how to use tech. But so I was doing something similar as well, not traveling extensively, but going, on a trip here or there to Liberia. Someone asked me to do it. Now, were you charging these missionaries like a certain fee to do it, or how did that work?
No, I would raise all my support, and so that I could pay for my own travel, and then I would just do it as a gift. And man, honestly, I received a lot of pushback from different people, my mission organization, and from other from supporters that really were like, "Oh, you should really charge something. I think people would value it more." but I just never felt like it was not valued. Every time I would make a video and
Yeah,
I'd
for
show
sure.
it to the missionary, they'd be like crying when they were viewing it, and they would just be so happy to have something that they could take
Yeah.
and show people what, what their life looked like, and the stories that what God was doing in their ministries. And so I just always felt like people really valued it, and my desire was always to really help people to be well funded so that they could continue to do what God's calling them to do. So I didn't want to come in and charge them money to, that would make it even more difficult for them to be funded when they're having to shell out money. And with video, it's difficult because, I mean, you pay thousands and thousands of dollars for a video product in the U.S. One guy told me he would pay like $20,000 for his company to have a commercial and produced. And so it's like, okay, well, what do I even charge? Do I charge $50? That seems silly. Well, do I charge 500? Then it's going to not, that removes the accessibility for people. You start to have people that need a video but can't pay $500. So I just never felt comfortable doing that. And so I just never went there. And I love being able to do this as a gift for missionaries and really just help them with their funding and their communication so they can just keep doing what they're doing and can stay where God has called them to be.
That's awesome. You are one unique man. Every missionary out there is like, okay, put his handle back on there again. How do I contact Darin?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know of many other, or actually, I don't know of any that does that self fundraises or fully supports themselves to do this very thing, help missionaries tell their stories back to their sending churches, to the West, to wherever they're from. Which leads me to another question. Looks like you're chomping the bit to say something. I'm gonna.
Oh, not really. I mean, I was just gonna add there that when I first came in, as I said, there was lots of it was on the kind of the video was just making an impact, and I thought, well, I'll go do this for a little while, and then there'll be so many people doing this that'll be so much better than me. So I'll just find what else God wants me to do. But here we are 16 years later. It's still, we're not seeing a lot of media people come over. Some organizations do have like kind of their built-in teams, but they're generally providing kind of corporate, they're making stuff for corporate, which helps with recruiting and fundraising on the macro scale. But I don't know of anybody still in this community of several thousand missionaries here in Chiang Mai that's doing this kind of freelance for free for the community, or just even for pay. I don't know of anybody that's doing it. So I'll keep doing it as long as there's a need, and until somebody else comes along that, is going to take over, and I'm happy to figure out what else God wants me to do.
That's awesome, man. I'm proud of you for doing that. It's so meaningful to help missionaries tell their stories. But I was just going to say, I guess the bigger question is, why do missionaries need to tell their stories? I mean, what's the value? What's the unique role that missionaries have? Because we don't want to talk up missionaries as if they're better people, the special elites, the cream of the crop compared to those who don't go. I don't believe that's the case at all. Every citizen in God's kingdom is significant. But there is a unique role of those who cross cultural, geographical, linguistic boundaries to share the gospel. Maybe it's among unreached people groups, at least in our case, for many people here. So why the big need for missionaries to tell their stories, in your opinion?
Well, I have a unique opportunity to be able to be a part of people's ministries for, a window in time while I'm making the video for them. And sometimes that's a day. Sometimes it's several weeks. I'll often have videos for several different clients going on at any one time. So I'm working on one, and then while I'm waiting for an event to happen, or I'm waiting for them to get me something that I need, I go work on this one. And so sometimes I have several that I'm working on. And so if the person is really motivated and has time to really get me what I need, I can produce the video very quickly. But sometimes it's several weeks, sometimes it's several visits to their ministry to get what I need. So I have this opportunity to be a part of all these ministries, and I get to see all the amazing things that God is doing in all these ministries, all over the Southeast Asia, and I've been over to Congo and Eastern Europe, and I see all these really amazing things that people are doing and that God is doing through their ministries. And so I just want to help tell those stories so that so people in the West can see what God is doing. And as you said, there's people in the West that are called to be where they are. and they want to support missions. They're not called to go; they're called to send, and so they just need to figure out where God wants them to invest their money and their funds. So I love to be able to tell those stories so that those people who really have a heart for missions and senders can find those ministries and connect with them. And so that's why I just love being a part of a lot of different ministries and getting to see what people are doing and what God is doing, and helping them to really get the word out, raise awareness.
Yeah. Well, you also have this unique, as you mentioned all that, it seems like you have this unique, privilege of entering all these different ministries. Many people who come overseas, they're missionaries, they serve in an organization, maybe they're independent missionaries. They don't get to see what's happening at the next ministry over or someone down the road. And so that's what's kind of made you somewhat of I could say, pillar in the community. Everyone knows you, right? Because you're that guy who generously gives them videos, or at least helps them articulate their stories.
Well, and I get to connect people too. I get to connect missionaries, because I'll meet with a missionary and they said, this is what I'm doing. And I'll say, do you know so-and-so? And they'll say, no. I said, well, so-and-so's working over here and they're doing something very similar. Yeah. And I need to connect with them, and I'll connect them. And a lot of times they'll be able to work together or assist each other, or I'll find an organization that does this thing and they're lacking this piece. And I'm like, I know this organization, that's this ministry that's doing that piece you're missing. And then they can work together, and they're not doing the same thing. They're doing different things that can help each other out. And so I love being able to connect missionaries too within our own community and help them to work together to achieve greater things.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of jealous of your role here. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I love doing this. I could be that connector guy too. It's not the season I'm in right now in life, but I'm slightly jealous of this.
Well,
this
I love watching I love your podcast because I get to see all my friends on there.
Yeah. I just only have guys from Chiang Mai, ladies and men and women here in Chiang Mai, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's super cool. You've traveled around the world. You said you were in Congo just recently. Just a few days ago, last weekend, we were at a men's meeting here in Chiang Mai, and you were telling me these crazy stories. You got to tell me one or two, or as long as you want. What are some of the craziest things that have happened to you as you travel the world and go to these different ministries and missionaries?
Well, I'm not intentionally plugging a book, but I did actually write a book of 7 crazy adventures that I've had.
Did you?
And,
okay.
And it wasn't. The book is not trying to be spiritual or anything. It's just kind of fun stories. And of course, I do talk about what God is doing in some of the places that I was. But there are some fun stories in there. And there's one of the stories that kind of came up the other day when you and I were talking. We were talking about the Congo, and I'm planning to go back in November to the Congo for a second trip. And one of the hilarious things that happened on that trip was, I was in the Congo and we were there for like 3 weeks, and I didn't see a dirt road. I mean, I didn't see a paved road for the 3 weeks that I was there. So and it was rainy season. So we're trudging through, mud and it's very tropical there. So it's just a lot of rain, a lot of mud. And we're just for 3 weeks, we're just trudging through mud. And we finally get ready to leave, and we make our way to the airport. The airport is basically a dirt landing strip, and we walk up the dirt road and go into this little building that was their terminal. And this guy starts yelling at me in French, yelling at all of us in our group. It was like 3 or 4 of us, and he's yelling at us in French, and he's pointing at our shoes, and he's fussing at us. And we had tried to kind of kick him off outside, but we had trailed a little bit of dirt in unintentionally.
How dare you?
Yeah, as much as we had tried to kick the dirt off, I mean, we just had clumps and clumps of dirt on us from 3 weeks, And he's just yelling at Jared, and we were sorry. And so our translator who was with us, she said, "Oh, he's upset that he's not upset that you're getting his airport dirty. He's upset that you're going to be leaving his country with dirty shoes. It's like an insult to his country that I would be leaving with dirty shoes." Of course, we're not trying to insult anybody, and I didn't know however else. We only had one pair. We all had one pair of shoes because we pack light, and we just said, "Sorry, this is the only pair of shoes we have," and the dirt roads, and he said, "Give me your shoes," and he took our shoes from us, and we're like, "What?" And he takes them in the back room, and for like 10 minutes, he's back there just cleaning our shoes with water and a scrub brush.
Okay.
And then he finally, our pilot, we were flying with a private, with an MAF pilot, and he finally comes because he's like trying to get us out of there. And we're kind of being held up by this process. So finally, he just goes back there and gets the shoes from the guy, and he's like, "Get on the plane." And so we get on the plane and fly away. So that was it's kind of these kind of stories that I'm sure you come across when you're traveling. You're just like, I don't understand what's happening, but you just kind of go with it and figure it out as you go.
That's awesome. Okay, where do people find your book? Tell me the title again.
It's called Adventures in Asia. I got it on Amazon.
Okay.
Other Kindle and stuff like that. So
cool. Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't tell me about this. I've known you for how long? You're not that shameless plug kind of guy, I guess.
Well,
huh?
I've sold 3 copies, I think. So I think
okay.
my mom bought 2. So, and I'm not exaggerating. I kind of did it just because it was fun. I just wanted to do it. I mean, actually, you were one of my inspiration because you had written some books and
thanks,
thought, I want to try to write something. And so I just thought, well, I'll just write some of these fun stories that I've crazy things that have happened to me, and as I've traveled around Asia. So that's
cool.
what I ended up doing. So
all right, I'm gonna look on Amazon for that. You might have 4 copies sold here by the end of this conversation.
Yes. Yes.
So, and if I leave a review, you might hit the top of your category, #1 bestseller. So
That's
we'll see,
true.
How that.
I took a screenshot for my mom because on the day I released it, I was like I think it was like the 87th bestseller in my subgenre.
Yeah.
Travel stories in Southeast Asia.
Yeah. So I did that. I remember doing that too. I was like showing, because I pay for Amazon marketing. So I always try to keep it in the top 50 in like 10 different categories, but sometimes I hit #1 because I advertise really heavy. And I'm kind of proud of myself. I'm like, oh yeah. And someone's like, you do realize that that's like a genre within a genre within a subcategory. I was like, all right, well, it still looks good. #1.
Yeah, that's right. What have you done lately?
Yeah. Okay, well, I will check that out. What's the craziest thing you've ever eaten?
Oh, you know what? I have learned how to not eat the crazy things. I'm not one of these people that's like, I gotta do it because I've been challenged. No, I just learned to it's usually like, I've been in a few situations where it's like a cultural thing and you kind of have to do it. But most of the time it's like, hey, we got some Americans here or whatever. Let's bring out the stuff and see if they'll eat them, bring out the bugs or whatever. So usually it's kind of like a show thing. And so I know when to kind of just blend into the background and let the more, crazy people on my team go for it and take all the congratulations and cheers. And then I just kind of pay back. Also, I'm the guy with the camera. Yeah, exactly. I'm the guy with the camera. So with all else fails, I'll do the filming.
Yeah. I have to document this.
One trick I learned when I lived in in Isan region, the northeast part of Thailand. It's out near Laos and Cambodia and that corner, and it's very, very rural, and it's actually their own people group, their own language group, and they have their own food, different types of food that they have that are unique to that region, and they do eat a lot of bugs, but they also love it like super, super spicy. I mean, they are choking and watering with their eyes and saying how good it is. They're like, oh, it's so good. Oh. And they're dying. Yeah. So I can't, I'm just a wimp when it comes to hot food. So I can't do any of that stuff. So I learned to just eat a lot of rice. And you sit on the floor in Isan on the ground. So I would hold my bowl up, kind of to my face, and they can't see what's in my bowl, and I'm just like eating the rice and eat real slow, and I just learned to kind of buy time so that I wouldn't have to eat the really spicy stuff or the bugs and things like that.
You're too much of a seasoned vet, man. I was hoping for monkey brains or something like that.
But the one thing I'd say, the one thing I did go for that I kind of like had to, I was in a yurt in Mongolia, like you know what a yurt is, I don't know what
tent.
Yeah, it's like a tent, like a round tent. Yeah, like a round tent thing. We're in there. We're in the middle of nowhere, out on the plains, and we're sitting there with this family. And the missionary that's hosting us has taken us out there to meet this family, and we're sitting there, and he brings out this like a mug or jar or something like that, and he starts pouring everybody little cups, or no, he gets pouring one cup, and the missionary sit next to us, and he goes, okay, this is going to be vodka, and they're going to pass it around. You're supposed to take 3 sips and keep passing. So, just take small sips or whatever, gauge. And okay. So then it comes around to me, and at that time I'm like 22 years old, and I didn't drink at that time, and so I'm like not sure how I'm gonna deal this vodka. So he hands it to me, and I'm supposed to take 3 sips. So I kind of just held up to my lips 3 times and did a little bitty sip, and it was quite sour. And oh, okay. And then when you pass it around, it goes around and it goes around the room. Everybody does their 3 sips, and I'm like, man, I sure hope it doesn't come around again. And then the next thing that happened was he brings out this yogurt, and I'm like, oh, I can do yogurt. I love yogurt. So they said, okay, he's gonna, give everybody yogurt. I said, okay, that's great. Give me, yeah, oh, keep going, yeah, give me more than that. I'm good. Yeah, I'll take lots of yogurt. So he gives me this big old bowl of yogurt, and then I take a bite of the yogurt, and it's like the most sour, kind of rancid thing I've ever tasted, and like everything in me just immediately recoiled. And it turns out like he was expecting that, so the Mongolian guy kind of looked, he waited, and then I was like, oh, and I was trying to make and then he laughed and laughed, and then he brought me some sugar, and I put a bunch of sugar in it, and it was okay. But yeah, I still prefer that.
Is that like yak butter tea or something from Tibetan style? Sounds,
yeah,
when you say like rancid
that. Yeah,
butter, yogurt,
fermented, or yeah,
it reminds me of my experiences with yak butter tea near Tibet.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
yeah, which sounds good. It kind of sounds good. Yak butter tea.
Does it? Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we're going there next. When it comes to food, man, I've had probably my fair share of too many local delicacies, and ripped me up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to it here, because you have all these crazy stories. But I was going to ask you, what kind of tech do you use? I mean, is this something someone else can replicate, or do you find that you are the guy who's got some skills? You've, like you said, been honing your skills for many years. So you know how to edit. Maybe you're using Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere. I don't know what you're using. You tell me in a second. But is this something that's reproducible, like someone else can do, or do they kind of have to rely on you to make these videos?
Well, okay. So when I started working for my church, and as I said, they were just brand new, starting this department, and they said, we actually want to hire 2 guys. They were going to run audio. It always had been volunteers and stuff. They said, we actually want to hire 2 guys and kind of take this up a notch and make it a little more professional. And so they did that, but we still didn't have a large budget. And so they gave us some computers and some cameras and stuff, but we couldn't have anything we wanted. We had to just take what was in our budget and learn to use it. And so we actually started with iMovie. If you remember iMovie on Mac, it's a very, very basic video editing program, and it's free. So that's what we used, and we had a nice camera, but we had iMovie. So we learned to use iMovie, and it would take 50 times longer to do something, but you could do what you could do in Final Cut or something like that, but you'd have to do all these workarounds. So I learned all these short, ways to kind of get around to not having features to be able to make it work. And I used it for like
process or whatever.
Yeah, or just like even like transitions and things like that. We would just create our own way to do transitions if they weren't built in, or things like that. And so we used it for several years. And then I finally, when I went to Thailand, I raised money to buy Final Cut Express, which was like a free. It was like a couple $100, but it had way more features than iMovie, but it wasn't like the pro version of Final Cut. It was called Final Cut Express, and so I started using that, and that was a huge jump for me because I had been using iMovie. So I used that for a number of years, and then Final Cut did away with the Express and the Pro, and they just made one version, and they dropped it down to $299, which I think 10 years later, I think it's still the same price, and you get lifetime upgrades. So I switched to iMovie Pro at that time, and I've just been using that ever since. And then Final as far as Final Cut Pro, yeah, or they call
Yeah.
it Final Cut X or something like that. Final
Yeah.
Cut X, Final Cut Pro X. And then for cameras, I again don't have. I never get the latest greatest because that's kind of a losing battle. There's always something else that comes out right after you
Sure.
get something, and I have to keep my computer upgraded, my phone, my I have a drone that I use a lot, so I have the drone, and then I have the camera. So I have like 4 different things that I can't just have the latest greatest in all those categories all the time. So I get what works and I learn how to use it really well, and then I stick with it as long as I can until the tech really gets obsolete or it dies. And I've got cameras all over that are just dead that I've just used forever. I can't show you here, but I've got I basically created a museum in my office here where
Sounds
I've
like
got
a
a shelf.
camera graveyard over
I've got a
there.
shelf. Yeah, I've got a shelf just full of old cameras and things like that I can't
That's
use
cool.
anymore. And people love it. They come in and go, "Oh, I remember this phone. I have my old cell phones down there and stuff like that." But anyway, I just try to use what I have as long as I can. And so the camera I'm using right now is I think it came out maybe about 10 years ago or something like that. The drone I'm using came out about 7 years ago.
Wow. You're
Um,
making it work then, man.
Making it work.
Is
My laptop is about 4 years old, and so I just try to, I get something that's good, and I use it as long as I can. I mean, the camera shoots 4K or 1080, so why do I need the latest greatest? I
Yeah.
can learn how to use this, and then
I thought you were
my
going to tell me
drone.
you had like a red camera or something like that.
No, I use a Sony 6300, which is a very kind of middle range camera, and then my drone, I use a Mavic Pro, which came out several years ago, and I don't think they even sell them anymore.
Hmm.
But it flies and it shoots 1080 or 4K. So why do I need the latest? I'm
Yeah.
using this and it's working great. And also, the longer you use a piece of equipment, the more you get to know it, and the more you learn how to use it. And so every day I use my equipment, I learn more about it and I get more comfortable with it, and I get more efficient with it. And um, and then also, as I said before, for me it's about the process. Like I don't need a really fancy camera because I have a good camera and I know how to use it, and I know when I go to, say, a children's home, I know what shots I need. I know how to get the lighting where I need it. I shoot outside a lot, so I can use outside lighting. I use trees as backdrops instead of a dark classroom or something like that, so I don't have to bring in a bunch of lights and set them up. And so I've just kind of learned how to streamline my workflow so that I
Yeah.
can get what I need and not have to carry bags and bags of equipment.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the key. That's awesome, man. It's almost like a shoestring. It's not a shoestring operation
Yeah.
because I've seen your work. It's quality. The
Well, and
flow is.
I didn't start off with all those things either. I started off with a camera, and then eventually I bought a lapel mic because I realized, hey, this would be much better quality if I had good audio. So I
Yeah.
learned that, I learned the barking dog in the background, the roosters and stuff. So I got the mic, and then investing in a good tripod, because you start to realize that, oh, my footage would look a lot better if it were stabilized,
Yeah.
and
Instead of
then
slowly tilting as you do the
yeah.
interview.
And then mixing in a drone shot,
Yeah.
in the beginning to show, say you're at a children's home, like I said earlier, like getting an overhead shot of the children's home just to show the surrounding area or whatever. It just adds so much to your video. So
For
eventually I was
sure.
able to get a drone. Um, a little handheld light is nice to have, a little LED light that you can have to throw on there if you do end up in a dark room. So just kind of adding to my kit as I've found a need for those things, and not just trying to be like, okay, I'm going to do video work, I need these 15 things and I need the best. No, just start with what you have, add to it as you learn more, and as you grow in your skills, and then you don't end up with a lot of equipment that you don't need or that you
Yeah.
don't know how to use because it's way above where your skill level is.
Your
So
pay
that's kind of
grade.
how, yeah. And so that also has made it easily reproducible. I actually do a lot of stuff with the iPhone too. I shot for our video that we took on our home assignment this summer to go talk to our supporters. We shot the whole thing on the iPhone, and I
Wow.
had it on a gimbal. So it's electronic gimbal, so it stabilizes it. And then I had a mic that I got off of off of Lazada that was about $75, like the Amazon for Asia. And it was about $75 for this wireless lapel mic. And that's all I had. I had the gimbal with the phone and the lapel mic, and we shot our whole video with that. And people loved it. The new phones are, the iPhones shoot 1080 or 4K, and they look really good. And there's limitations, obviously, lighting, focus, movement, but you learn how to work around those limitations. So you don't pan the camera, you just hold still and get a static shot, and then it looks great. You make sure you have good lighting, you make sure your focus is locked, so you can use what you have and learn how to use it. So then when I work with nationals, which we do every other year, we have a big training conference here where we have nationals come in from all over the world. We have India and Burma and all the way over to the Middle East, and we have all these training tracks that we do. And my track is video editing and video production. And so we'll have 60, 70 people in our class who have never produced a video before. And they come with whatever they have, their phones or maybe an old camera somebody's given them. Myself and the other volunteer trainers will bring any equipment that we have that still works that we're not using, and we'll donate it and let people start to use those things. And we spend 2 days just in the classroom, just doing like classroom training, showing them how to set up a shot, how to frame it to where you have your eye line on the third line, or how to do lighting, or all those kinds of things, and just the real basic stuff. And then the last 2 days of the training, we actually just send them out into the conference grounds and in teams, and they produce their own short videos. And we have them choose a parable of Jesus and produce a video based on one of the parables. And it can be sometimes people do a period piece where they get a towel on their head and try to make some costumes and do it that way. Or sometimes they do a modern day retelling, newscast, and they're talking about this event that happened, this miracle that Jesus performed or something like that, or the story that Jesus told or whatever. And so, we just have different ideas that people come up with. And then, so they learn how to actually do the hands-on producing a video, but then they actually go back to their countries with a video they can start to use to show people and start to tell Bible stories with these videos. And then now they have one under their belt, and now they can start to produce on their own and create their own videos. And so we do that every other year here in Chiang Mai, and we have like 1,000 people come in for this.
Dude, that's awesome.
So now technology has become so accessible that people can use their phones, or they can find old cameras, or even new cameras are affordable for some, and they can start to produce videos with just a basic kind of kit.
That's awesome. I think that's what I was getting at a second ago when I was asking, is this reproducible? Do people have to rely on you? It's funny how you're empowering all these people with a kind of a school of media arts, and yet you're never working yourself out of a job. It's a strange dynamic, but I think you're giving away, and that there's still so many people out there who want to tell their stories. What is your favorite kind of place or ministry or group to help tell their story? You mentioned children's homes a number of times. Is that it, or is it something else, or is it a combination?
What is my favorite group?
Your favorite style of ministry or ministry focus you like to help people tell?
Oh man, I don't choose. I just I don't advertise, and it's just kind of all word of mouth. And I'll do a video for somebody, and then somebody else will contact me and say, "Hey, you just did a video for the Millers, and I saw it. It was great. Would you be willing to work with us?" And so I just get such a wide variety of stuff. But here in Thailand, it seems like a lot of the ministries are really social focused right now, which I've really grown to love seeing. They're working in children's homes, as I mentioned. They're working in the red light districts, working with the women that are coming out of the red light districts. There's ministries that are going in and talking to the men that are going into the red light districts, and doing ministry among the men that are the clients. And then there's anti-trafficking ministries that are doing rescues and restoration, and then there's people that are working with the poor in our communities, and they're teaching them vocations like jewelry making and sewing, and helping them to be able to feed their families and things like that. And so, there's just a huge variety. I'd say my favorite thing is just never knowing what I'm getting into.
Hmm.
I have some missionary that approaches me, contacts me, and wants to needs my help. And first thing I do is we just kind of we go to a coffee shop, and I just interview them and figure out, what are you doing and how long you've been doing it and who are you, and we just have a conversation, and I'm sort of vetting them and figuring out about their ministry. And
Yeah.
usually, because it's word of mouth, I mean, I really haven't had a situation that I can remember that I have to turn someone away because of what they're doing or their theology or something like that. Because it's word of mouth, it's usually somebody that's a friend of somebody I know, and so it kind of self vets itself that way.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you just
But
blame your friend if it goes south real quick.
that's right.
And I'm going to be careful who
Yeah.
I send over your direction.
That's right. But also it's free. And so
Yes.
I do put something back on the missionary. I give them some sample, for example, like say scripting. I'll give them some sample scripts of how other people have told their story about their ministries. And I'll say, okay, now I need you to go write your script. And,
Yes.
and sometimes I don't hear back from them, and I'll check in with them and, oh, I'm sorry, I've just been really busy. And so that kind of gives me an idea of what their, where their priority is on this.
Yeah.
And well, maybe they don't really need it as bad as they said they did or whatever. And then I can work with other people that are very eager. And sometimes people are just really busy. And so then I just have to help them be like, okay, well, are you having a hard time getting started? Here's an idea, make an outline first, and I'll work with them and kind of coach them a little bit and get them started that way. And so, it kind of just ends up taking care of itself to where I always just have as much work as I can handle. It kind of works itself out that way.
Cool.
And I don't consciously choose which ministries I'm going to work with. It's just whoever God brings my way. Once I have a meeting with them at the coffee shop, if things, go well in that conversation, which they usually do, then we end up working together and producing a video for them. And then my wife, who I haven't mentioned yet, my wife I actually met here in Thailand. She's an American, met her here, and we have 2 children that were born here while we've been here. And my wife is a very talented photographer and graphic designer. And so we used to work really closely together on these projects. But now that we have little kids, she tends to do her projects while I'm watching the kids. And then she watches the kids while I do my projects. So like when we used to go out together and work on the filming and stuff together, and she'd go do a photo shoot and I'd go with her. But now we kind of, she goes and does the photo shoot and I go do the video. But if a client contacts me and needs video support, then I'll say, hey, could you use a brochure? Could you use photos that you could use on your social media? And, yeah, that'd be great. So then my wife can add that piece. And
that's awesome.
So Staci can go and get pictures and create basically
I didn't realize
that. So she can basically create a print version of their video.
Okay.
Take the script from the video, put it into a brochure, add in pictures, sometimes stills from the video or her own pictures. And then that way they've got a physical brochure that they can hand to people, sometimes to complement the video, sometimes in place of the video. If they can't show the video, they can at least hand out the brochure. And then the other popular thing that she does is prayer cards, which is very popular in the West. It's just a picture of your family that says the Miller family. I keep saying Miller, just my go-to name for some reason.
Who is the Miller family?
I don't know.
Referring to?
They don't exist. The Miller family serving in Southeast Asia, and it's got their picture and their info on the back so that people can give to their ministry. And so we do that for them. Staci will take their photo and produce that for them, design it for them, and then they've got a prayer card that they can hand out as well. So we want to send them back to their home country well prepared for their home assignments, so they have a video to show and a brochure to give out, a prayer card to give out, and really just help them make those connections with their existing supporters and with potential supporters, so they can continue to be well funded and serving where God has called them.
Well, that's the applicable title for this conversation then. Helping missionaries tell their stories back to their Western world or to their sending church. That's really cool. I think I need to get in touch with Staci. You mind watching the kids for a while? We have some social media and brochure needs ourselves. But that is really exciting. Let's say someone's watching this right now. Maybe they're from the Chiang Mai, Thailand community or somewhere in Thailand, or even outside, and they need to fly you somewhere or figure out how that all works. it's not like we have a million subscribers or anything and get overwhelmed, but how do people get in touch with you? What's the best way to contact you and start this thing up?
I think at the beginning you had some of my handles on the screen, so just really
Yeah. Here, I'll put your
anyway,
face on there again.
yeah, Facebook and Instagram, or what else? What else you got there? Yeah,
Am I
anything.
missing something?
My email is just my name, darindunn@gmail.com, so that works too.
Okay.
So yeah, happy to help any way I can. Yeah, as far as I don't really seek out a lot of travel opportunities, especially now that I have little kids and there's
Yeah.
plenty to do here in Thailand. But occasionally, God brings an opportunity my way that's just a really neat ministry, like the one I'm going to work with in Congo in a few weeks. And so basically, what I say to those ministries, if it really seems like we're going to be a good fit for each other, and it's something that I'm really feeling led to be involved with, I'll just ask them to cover my expenses, and then I go work for free. And so
Yeah.
it ends up being a good deal for them, and we try to produce as many videos as we can. So it's not like I'm going and producing one video. In the Congo, last trip we ended up producing over 40 different videos that they were able to
40.
use over. Yeah, so
Wow.
I shot for 2 or 3 weeks, and then
Okay.
we had a plan, and we had plan for all these different videos that we wanted, and so basically just mapped it all out, and then
Wow.
I came back to Thailand with hours and hours and hours of footage, and then I just over the next 3 years I put out 1 or 2 a month, and they were able
Wow.
to.
That's awesome.
This is a brand new ministry, and they were able to start building their ministry with these products, with the photos, be able to start populating their website with good quality photos, and be
Yeah.
able to send out videos every month to their supporters to really start building their contact lists and things like that. And so
Yeah.
really taking a brand new ministry and helping them really kind of establish themselves on the
Thrive.
web.
Yeah.
So
Well, I can almost sense all these missionaries watching this kind of salivating, like, I want that too. Again, man, I'm so proud of all that you're doing. It's just, you
thank you.
have no idea, I think, the ripple effect and the divine interconnections that are being created. You just give them the video, they go home. God brings all these different kinds of people. And I also like a second ago how you mentioned the difference between, you're differentiating between the goer and the sender. And I think that high value for those who send reminds me so much of William Carey, the father of modern missions, initial story in 1793 when a missionary to India spoke to his church and congregation in England and said, who is willing to go down into the gold mine of souls, talking about India and these unreached areas. And William Carey said to his surrounding pastors and leaders, I'm willing to go down into the gold mine of souls if you will hold the ropes. And that rope holding imagery that's been present in the missionary world for many, many years really empowers. It shows that we all have a role to play, and some do go. Others hold the rope, and as you're kind of scrounging around in that gold mine looking for gems and jewels and people ready to come to Christ, how powerful it is to feel the tug back on the rope and the celebratory nature of souls coming into the kingdom, together. And I think all that I just mentioned, you're helping to empower this. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we just got back from our own home assignment, and man, we just came back so just fired up and encouraged because we have so many great supporters that really get what we're doing, and they are supporting us so that we can support others, and that just means a lot to me because they could be supporting frontline people, and that's very valuable. But the fact that they chose to support us, who were really not on the front lines, we're like one step back from the front lines. So we're supporting those that are really on the front lines, and then we have people that are willing to come along and support us, so we can do that, and that really understand that we can have that ripple effect, and not just in Thailand, but our videos go out all over the world, from all over the world. I mean, we've made videos for people that are serving in over 40 countries. And so it's
awesome.
and then those videos go to dozens of countries where their support bases are. And so it's just really neat to see how God uses those things.
Yeah. Okay. So what is the last question? What does the future hold for you? Is this an indefinite thing? This is what you're going to do until Jesus comes back, or you get to the grave, or what's in the near future for you, or the distant future?
Yeah, I mean, we feel like we're here indefinitely. As I said earlier, I when I first started, I didn't know how long it would last. I thought, well, I'll do this until there're just a million media guys here, and then I'll figure out something else that God wants me to do. But I still feel like we're really needed here. I feel like we can still really contribute here, and and so we'll just keep doing it. And
Hmm.
yeah, we have little kids. We have a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old. So I understand
Same as
now.
me.
Yeah. So I understand now, as I was as a single missionary and I was seeing my coworkers go through these stages of life with their families. I get now when your kids get to be like college age, how you maybe go back for a season. So I could maybe envision us going back for a season when our kids get to be of college age to kind of help them transition well and stuff. But
Flying the drone over their college campus as you see
yeah,
them off.
literally being a helicopter parent.
Yeah.
I I actually did that at the school where my daughter goes.
I
Uh,
saw your
I
post, man.
Yeah.
Tell me
So
about it. Tell everybody about it.
I flew the drone. I had permission to fly the drone because I was doing videos for the school. But I flew the drone over to the playground when I knew it was recess time, and there was maybe 100 kids on the playground. And I flew it over the playground. I was nowhere near the playground. I was like, half a kilometer away or something. But I flew it over the playground, and then I came down right over the playground, maybe like 15 feet over the playground to see if I could spot my daughter. And within seconds, she was right under the drone, looking up at it, waving.
That's
So I thought
awesome.
that was funny. I was like, oh, I didn't expect it to be that easy to find her,
Well, I
but
think
yeah,
your post you posted on Facebook is right when everybody was going back to school, and they're taking photos of their kids
yeah,
standing in front of their house, dressed in their
yeah, yeah,
uniform, first day of school, and you're like, I'm going to fly my drone over the school,
yeah.
and there's
Her
this
hair is
awesome
just like
footage.
up, and all the
Yeah,
drones
yeah.
blowing her hair everywhere. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with our kids as they get older. But for right now, we feel like we're here indefinitely, and we'll just keep plugging away what God's given us
Awesome.
to do.
Awesome. That's what I love about you, man. Putting your hand to the plow, not looking back. And you are just really impacting so many people. I can't even tell you enough. You and Staci just, if nobody's told you recently, I'm just so blessed and appreciative of you guys, how you're giving of yourselves and multiplying the efforts of all these different missionaries here. It's aiding in missionary retention, I think, when we see missionary attrition because
Yeah.
people can't stay in the field for financial or other reasons.
Yeah. It's one of the
You're,
major causes of people leaving the field is lack of funding.
which you're addressing
Yeah.
directly. So that's great. That's awesome. All
Yeah.
right. Well,
But we also see, if I could add one more thing. I mean,
yeah.
the funding is not only just simply helping keep them here, but it keeps them healthy here too. Because when you're hurting and you're in funding, it affects every part of your life. It
Yeah.
affects your ministry, but also affects your marriage. It affects everything. And so when we've seen this over and over and over, missionaries having to leave the field, and I'm sure you've seen it too. They arrive and they didn't come well funded, or something falls out with their funding, and you just the ones that try to stay here, you just see them suffering, or the ones that leave, you're just sad that they had to leave, and you see that their ministry was going somewhere. And so we want to keep people healthy in their ministries and their marriages and their families, and so then they can continue to thrive. So
Yeah.
they're not hurting and trying to help other people while they're in a bad place. So we want them to
Yeah.
be healthy, and then they're well equipped to be able to do what they're called to do to the best of their ability.
A very powerful ministry. So thank you. Helps Ministries. I'll do a shameless plug. The book is called what? Adventures in Asia?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. By Adventures in Asia by Darin Dunn, DARINDUNN. All
That's
his
right.
handles on social media. Bro, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your
Yeah.
heart and challenging those who are on the field and those who are not. All of us part of a bigger plan.
Thanks for having me. I'm a big fan of you, and I'm a big fan of your podcast too. So thanks for having me
Awesome.
on.
Well, here we
Yeah.
are. Hashtag Missions Pulse and Darin Dunn. We'll blast the interwebs.
All
Thanks
right.
so much, my friend.
Have a good
All right.
night.
Well, if you just watched that, I want to say this. There are some of you out there, the goers, who have gone and crossed geographic and maybe political or linguistic or cultural boundaries and gone to the ends of the earth. God is with you. He promised that he would never leave nor forsake you. You are part of the grand epic narrative he is telling, the Great Commission story that culminates in Revelation 7:9, a powerful thing to be a part of. Be encouraged today. And if you're watching this and you're a sender, maybe you've always wanted to go, or maybe you're unable to, or maybe you just love missions, continue to support and give financially. Pray for missionaries and those who are going to places that are gospel dead zones, that need to be given gospel access, perhaps. Just what an encouraging storyline this is, and includes all of us. I think God is so happy to include his people in this grand storyline of the nations coming to him receiving the honor he deserves from every people, tribe, nation, and language and area. So also, if you've been watching and you're like, man, I got to get myself a video from Mr. Darin Dunn, make sure you go on over to darindunn.com. Check that out. He'll be happy to connect with you. Have a great day. God bless. Subscribe to this video. Tell your friends about it. And I hope to see you next time.
Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join his mission. This podcast is powered by Within Reach Global. Subscribe, watch, and listen on YouTube today. Visit missionspulse.com.